This episode of Profiles in Risk is sponsored by Zywave. Insurers, brokers, and agencies are facing escalating risk and rising complexity. Only Zywave delivers a performance multiplier, equipping you with the tools to get risk right, unlock efficiency, and scale at new speeds. Find out more at 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀.com.
Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your, I actually slept pretty well, host, overly caffeinated host. And today I am in my native Costa Rica for my mom's 65th birthday. This is
well, happy birthday to her.
Thank you, thank you. This is maybe the 5th episode I record during this trip, and they've all been good, so no pressure. So today I have with me Zac Townsend, CEO at Meanwhile. And so first of all, Zac, thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Tony.
Awesome. And I've got a really nice travel mic setup. Costa Rica can be a really loud place, partially because the weather's so beautiful, our windows are not weathered. So hopefully the microphone does a good job, or I might put myself on mute at times. But historically, this microphone does a great job. So, Zac, we usually break the ice over the weather. Are you currently in Bermuda, or are you currently in San Francisco?
I'm currently in San Francisco.
Perfect. So
it is overcast and 60 degrees, despite being the middle of the summer.
That sounds
It's the coldest summer in recorded San Francisco history. We're loving it.
Wow. Now, San Francisco doesn't get very warm. You have a weird summer.
Yeah, there's like one day in September, usually. There's the old Mark Twain quote, which is that the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
See, yeah. I love the Bay. I lived in Berkeley for a year, and I love the Bay. The cost of living is insane, but the weather is gorgeous. Sweater weather all year round is right up my alley. No snow and no bad summers, right up my alley. Now, here in Costa Rica, the weather is so nice, especially in the city of San Jose, where I grew up. The weather's so nice, you literally don't think about the weather. And people complain if it like rains a little bit. But so I landed last Friday, and I opened my weather app, and it looked exactly like it looks today. 60, like mid 60s to low 70s, sometimes high 70s, but rainy every day. Not great.
But is that like an afternoon sprinkle?
It really is. It's not monsoons. It really is like 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. rain every afternoon, and then a beautiful evening. So you really can't complain. Like, the weather here is just gorgeous. Yeah. The funny part is you don't realize it until you move abroad. 10 years in the Midwest, you realize how nice the weather is down here. So we always give the chance to give the elevator pitch. Meanwhile, what is Meanwhile?
Meanwhile is the world's first and currently only life insurance company entirely denominated in Bitcoin. That might sound a little crazy, but we believe that Bitcoin is an amazing long-term store of value. Maybe not a great store of value day to day or week to week or month to month, but we believe decade to decade. So we sell life insurance denominated in Bitcoin, and we do that with a Bermuda life insurer that does everything in Bitcoin.
Perfect. All right. So I love the.
I was going to ramble on there, but then I'm like, elevator pitch.
No,
only 30 seconds.
And I should have done this a little better at the beginning. Normally, before recording, I say you can go for 30 seconds, you can go for 30 minutes. So please do ramble on. I will.
Tony, you ask questions. I mean, everyone, you be the voice of the listener.
Perfect.
What made sense there, Tony?
All right. So Bitcoin. Yes, the out of the many things we've heard about the value of Bitcoin, the one that seems to hold true is this idea of long-term store value. Right? Yeah. For like day-to-day transactions,
Not so much.
It's clunky and expensive. But for long-term store value, and especially the whole, if you believe that the US dollar will continue to lose its value the way it historically has, Bitcoin does seem very attractive. And there's really nothing to indicate that the dollar will stop losing its value the way that it historically has, right?
Yeah, or lots of other currencies, right? I mean, like, yeah,
Correct.
I have this story. I have a simple question sometimes in the sales process for our current product, which is a whole life product denominated in Bitcoin. Which is, would you rather your kids or your wife or your whatever got 10 Bitcoin or $1 million? And look, for a lot of people in the world, maybe the answer is $1 million because they think Bitcoin's not going to work. But if you have any inclination that Bitcoin is this inflation resistant long-term store of value, Bitcoin sounds pretty good. And the other thing is that if you're in countries in the world that whose currency is, has a history of being devalued, right? Like, I don't know, middle class people in Argentina don't buy a lot of life insurance because they're going to live longer than the Argentinian peso. So we feel that both, yes, if you're an American or maybe you're in Costa Rica or whatever, but also if you're in Nigeria or Turkey or Argentina or India, this is amazing.
That is a
But to
very
your
good point.
point, just to take on the US, like my son was born in 2018. If I bought $1 million of life insurance coverage then, I've seen the purchasing power of that policy go down like 25% because of inflation.
Now, we have had uh, a level of inflation over the last few years that we have historically not seen over the last 50 or 60.
Well,
Uh,
no, that we haven't seen over the last 20 or 30, but actually, obviously you go back to the
but yeah,
80s, the 70s, the 60s, like there were even higher inflation regimes then.
yes, that
So,
is very true.
our
Yes.
customer base and most of the, they're 30 to 55-year-old folks, they're pretty likely going to live through another bout of inflation. And again, just as you said, Tony, I think what we're seeing is that, yeah, day to day, Bitcoin might seem very volatile, but 5 year over 5 year, it's doing pretty well.
So I think that there's a few demographics for whom it just makes perfect sense. Uh, and interestingly, the two that come to mind are kind of opposites. So on one hand, uh, lowish value, and I don't know, so if I'm not mistaken, you don't do term, you only do whole life, right? Or
Correct.
only durable value, whatever that's called, life insurance.
Permanent life
Permanent.
insurance. But yeah, we do whole life,
Okay, perfect.
which for your listeners who don't know means it lasts your whole life.
Yeah.
And since you are eventually going to die, hopefully not soon, you will eventually get a payout. So it's much more
Eventually.
of like an
Yes.
intergenerational wealth transfer, intergenerational savings product. And then the multiples are a lot lower, right? On term life, you're really unlikely to die in the term of 10 years.
Mm.
So, you pay $1,000 a year, you get $1 million in coverage. That's 1,000 to 1 ratio, but you're just not likely to die.
Yes,
In
term is
whole life, yeah,
temporary protection. Yeah,
correct.
term is generally the cheapest way to protect a temporary period of time. I'm the sole income earner or the main income earner, and I've got significant liability
Yeah,
with small
the example
kids.
I give is my wife and I both have 30-year term life policies. We bought it at the time we signed our 30-year mortgage. And the idea is if one of us gets hit by the bus, then the other can pay off the house.
That makes perfect sense. Whole life is a whole other game, right? And in fact,
Correct.
one of the things that bothers me about the life insurance business here in the US, so not the Bitcoin denominated thing the super interesting thing that you're creating, but the traditional whole life, is the industry really pushes whole and other durable products uh, that are very expensive and that, in my opinion, only make sense for rich people trying to avoid taxes at the end of their life, or for things like transferring a business, things like that. But they're not the best protection for like the middle class. Uh,
Yeah, well, first off, I guess it depends what you mean by the middle class. And yeah, I'd say that the incentives in insurance, sometimes are tough, right? So agents want to sell products that have high
three.
margins. High margin products
Mhm.
tend to be complicated, have a lot of optionality. So what's unusual about our product is it is denominated in this thing that seems like new and innovative and maybe risky, which is Bitcoin. But yeah, the product chassis, the core product, I joke, it's like from we run in a life insurance company from the 1830s. It's just that instead of being in dollars or euros or yen, it's in Bitcoin.
So I
But
think
the core product is you pay us over 10 years. So like a Bitcoin a year for 10 years. That's a big number, but whatever. You get the math. And then like we promise when you die, your kids get 15. And then all the benefits that like Northwestern Mutual or New York Life or whatever would pitch you on whole life, which is like, oh, it's compounding tax free. You can take a tax-free policy loan. You're getting the like core protection. All of that is true of our policy. It's just that we believe and our policyholders believe that that 15 Bitcoin isn't going to be $1.5 million like it is today. It's going to be a much larger sum in purchasing power terms.
I think it makes perfect sense for uh
Well,
top.
give me the poo personas. That makes perfect sense for Johnny. You were telling me.
Yeah,
Okay.
let you know, uh upper class in the US, especially like the techno elite. If your net worth is north of a few million bucks, your net worth is, let's say, 10 million bucks or more, uh especially if you're kind of San Francisco.
I like a few million bucks better than 10 million bucks.
Yeah, if your net worth is a few million bucks, and you believe that the dollar is going to lose its value, which is the case for a lot of the techno, the technocracy, uh then this makes so much sense. And then the other demographic that it
Well, can I pause you there and just say,
absolutely.
like, I completely agree with you demographically. This is actually in the sense that, our minimum policy size is one Bitcoin paid over 10 years. That's a tenth of a Bitcoin a year. Let's call that $100,000. Like it's a lot of money. The population we're serving right now tends to be a higher net worth. I think where I want to push back a little bit is on those people all being techno utopians. I think those people all believe that and have some concerns about the dollar, and they all have some concerns and some interest around, or they have concerns around inflation risk and currency risk and jurisdictional risk and political risk, and they are interested in this idea of Bitcoin as an inflation resistant store of value. But our customers, like, we have a doctor in upstate New York, we have a small business owner in Alabama, like we have um, like a quite, I don't want to say what he does to identify it, but like a middle class guy in Colorado. These are people that we're not actively selling this product. These are people who find out about us, approach us on like sort of a reverse solicitation basis. Like they've already made the decision around Bitcoin. They might not have bought into like AI is taking over the world, or they live in San Francisco or whatever comes to mind when you say like a techno person. But for whatever reason, they have come to believe that a part of their net worth, if not a significant part of their net worth, should be in Bitcoin.
And their concerns over the dollar, I do share. It does not appear to be getting better.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And the more you understand about macroeconomics, we are not making the moves as a society that would lead it to get better. So I totally get it. I would love to see the product advance to the point where you are able to write policies that make sense for the middle class, upper middle class of the
This
country.
is our ambition, right?
That would
So
be
sorry,
amazing.
our seed round was led by techno utopian Sam Altman, and he like doesn't care about insurance. He doesn't even really care about crypto. The pitch that I gave him that resonated was We believe we can radically expand this market. We want to serve 1 billion people, reaching them with digital money, and then servicing them profitably with automation. So like in the very first seed memo, the memo we wrote to raise our seed round, which is our first set of capital, we talked about this, that we like, and we are like completely on plan. We're going to start with the product, and that product is going to target, or is going to be, primarily purchased by high net worth individuals. That's going to get us more balance sheet. We're going to build out more operations. We're like automating the underwriting process. We're automating know your customer and anti-money laundering. And then like systematically over time, we want to move down market until not just a middle class person in America, but I said a middle class person in Argentina.
That'd be
I don't know
amazing.
what the
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can over time get to the point where you can provide great whole life insurance that removes the currency risk, for those that live in places with crazy currencies. Even my native Costa Rica, the most stable country in Latin America, the colon has gone, that's our local coin, has gone from 5 colones a dollar when my parents were kids to 140 colones a dollar when I was a kid to 500 and some for the last several years. And it's actually,
Yeah. So what if they had the option when you were a
exactly,
child to buy you, yes, it's buying a life insurance policy for themselves
yeah, that will
on their own
benefit
lives,
the
but
next
for
generation.
you. And then again, like every permanent life insurance provider, we allow policy loans. So it would have been something for them too. You can borrow against the policy, and in many jurisdictions that borrowing is tax-free. So yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that like we don't see ourselves as being in the business of convincing people about Bitcoin. But if you've already made that leap to say, I want part of my net worth in Bitcoin, I believe that all the things we're saying, like that the global decentralized currency outside the control of any government is gonna like meaningfully provide inflation resistance, then our policy is for you.
That makes sense. I am not surprised that you chose to build it in Bermuda. I'm assuming this sort of thing was and maybe still is just not possible to do in the US, Bitcoin denominated.
We're working on it, yeah, but not yet possible.
Okay. So what was that process like when you went to the Bermuda, whatever the
Monetary authority, yeah,
monetary
the
authority,
BMA.
and said we want to build a life insurance company denominated in Bitcoin? Whatever you can share from
It's
that
interesting.
experience.
So, I mean, I think you know this context, but Bermuda is like an insurance capital of the world. Huge number of insurance companies there. They take their reputation incredibly seriously. They have this, well regarded by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, Solvency II equivalents for Europe. A really deep understanding about insurance. And then over the last, 5 or 10 years, they've also like tried to be a friendly regulatory environment for crypto. So Coinbase's offshore operations are in Bermuda, Block's offshore operations, Circle's offshore operations. And they had been doing some thinking about the intersection of insurance and cryptocurrencies. And they had a few companies before us who applied on the general business side, which would be like the P&C side, which I know is more your world, Tony. So they had put out I don't know, high level regulatory framework. And we are the first people who sort of approached them about it. Now, to be honest, I do not think what they had in mind is what we did, which was we entirely denominate our company in Bitcoin. So people pay premiums in Bitcoin, we pay claims in Bitcoin, and then we do everything in between, our solvency calculations, our actuarial math, our reserving, our audited financials are all entirely in Bitcoin. And in that way, the price of Bitcoin doesn't make any difference to us, right? Because all of our assets and liabilities are matched in Bitcoin. Now, I think what they were originally thinking about was people who were going to run reinsurance entities that would hold some digital assets. But I think the nice thing about Bermuda is, it's a prudential-based regime. They're reasonable people. We told them what we wanted to do, and yeah, it took some time, but they got it. They understood that in fact this was going to be incredibly safe from the perspective of protecting policyholders, and that matching meant that if Bitcoin went, in the course of running this company, the price of Bitcoin's been all the way down to 16,500. It's been all the way up to 120,000, but our balance sheet has just steadily grown in Bitcoin terms as we sell more policies, as we have investment returns, right? So, yeah, going through the process was great. And it was just a process of having really detailed conversations over time and working with the regulators and, eventually crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and getting licensed and launching.
Fantastic. And it went live just this year, right? 2025?
No, we sold our first policy, which was to me, in November 2023, and have been going ever since.
All right.
The big milestone this year is we raised a $40 million Series A. So we now have raised $61 million to date. And the second big milestone is we released our first audited financials.
Fantastic.
So there's a mixed history in crypto and Bitcoin about one's financials. So we're really proud to have gotten through an external audit, for that external audit to be clean. And we believe it's the first external audit in history that's entirely denominated in Bitcoin.
That it would make sense. It would absolutely make sense. You should be making a documentary because it would be so interesting to see, the CFOs working entirely in Bitcoin, the actuaries figuring this out entirely, especially with
Well,
being so.
what's funny about the actuarial stuff, right, is actually it's all like ratios. So it can be in any curve. I mean, there are some like complications, like what's the discount curve in Bitcoin, like how do you do present value calculations, but like a lot of the core math is quite similar.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. So 3 years in the business, race this year. How? So normally I'm curious on the origin story. And so in this case, I completely understand, like the idea just makes so much sense. But yeah, what's the origin story? How did a guy with a degree in applied math, economics, public policy, and then an MPA, not an MBA, end up deciding to launch the first Bitcoin denominated life insurer?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, at the core of the mission here is what we've talked about, which is like driving global financial inclusion, global savings. But yeah, I've always been interested at sort of the intersection of policy and finance. Um, I grew up quite working class. My dad was a postman. I sort of grew up in a, very blue collar neighborhood in New Jersey. And then what ultimately happened, I have some other jobs, but I ended up working for Cory Booker when he was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. I was the head of innovation for the city. And one of the things I started to work on is like, why do people in West Newark not have bank accounts? Like, why do they go to check cashing? So just very interested in the nuts and bolts of these sort of like financial empowerment issues. And then Corey eventually decides to run from Senate, and he's now a senator from New Jersey. And I decided I wanted to go work on that and sort of the technology of financial services. So I moved out to San Francisco. I was an early employee at Stripe, the now giant credit card processor. I went through Y Combinator, the startup accelerator, and then ran a company that built low-level financial infrastructure. um, sort of wrapped banks and helped them work with fintech companies.
What was that,
And
Standard Treasury?
that company was called Standard Treasury.
Okay.
And then in the course of running that business, I basically got introduced both to Bitcoin for the first time, which was through Brian Armstrong and Coinbase and sort of learning about it there. And at the same time, I got introduced to life insurance somewhat from the same angle as like a bunch of the big asset managers. I was thinking a lot about banking, and I had this realization that the best bank in the world is a life insurer because they have the duration, right? So physical infrastructure, mortgages, a lot of real estate, these are all owned by life insurers because they can think in terms of decades, rather than a bank who actually has a bunch of deposits that can walk out the door that day. So I ultimately sold that business to Silicon Valley Bank, a bank who eventually has troubles with deposits walking out. And I did a bunch of other stuff, but I knew that I wanted my next company like topics I was interested in. I was interested in life insurance. I was interested in Bitcoin and crypto. So when we sat down, my co-founder Max and I, to think about this business in late 2021, if I have my math right. Actually, what we did is we're like, okay, we believe in the Bitcoin economy. We believe that it's going to be an economy. Like that was our mental model. It's going to be an economic system. And then we're like, okay, what are the regulated financial institutions that are going to exist inside the Bitcoin economy? And we're like, okay, they're going to be banks, and there's going to be exchanges, and there's going to be asset managers, and there's going to be payments companies. Um, and then we eventually realized, like, oh, this other idea we've been talking about, which is starting a life insurance company, like we sort of merged them together, and we realized that there should be a Bitcoin life insurance company. And it was an idea we couldn't get it out of our heads. We just kept talking about it, thinking about it. It sounds potentially so boring to other people, but to us, that is life insurance, maybe. But one of the things that like we realize it's infinitely interesting, right? There's like actuarial science, there's investments in asset management, to run this company, you have to wake up and find the joy and excitement, in risk management and compliance matters. And like, there's actually so much surface area. And my co-founder and I are just really broadly like interested and curious people. And we saw very early that this could have a huge impact on the world because I'll use an example. In Bermuda, it's not called life insurance. It's called long-term insurance, which I think is a better name because that gets into annuities, which is about saving for retirement, and insurance bonds and life insurance. And like the fundamental thing about a long-term insurer is that it is helping people think and act for the long term. And we are just wake up every day motivated by that.
Long-term insurance. Fantastic.
They don't call PNC short term, they call it general business. So
Okay. So in kind of the rest of the world outside the US, PNC they call it non-life. Okay, so thank you for helping me learn the Bermuda language. I have not yet had the chance to visit Bermuda. Can't wait. And I will totally get myself the silly shorts.
yeah, I'd suggest April or May. They're not silly, the shorts. You have to think like it's a bunch of conservative Brits, and then they move to a really hot island. So they want to like keep that we're going to a cricket match look,
Uh-huh.
but they
What
can't
is
actually
that?
wear pants. Okay, so that's how you end up with this like long sock, Bermuda short,
I
button-down shirt with a
I
tie,
I, I love it.
you need a jacket too, like
I
a thin linen jacket.
Yeah, I will most definitely. The first thing I will do when I get to visit Bermuda is go and get an authentic Bermuda formal setup. Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, sir.
I can recommend the store on Front Street that'll
Perfect. That definitely.
hook you up.
I just need a good excuse to go to Bermuda. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe my new book next year, how to engage Gen Z with an insurance. All right. what have been some of the challenges? That's a question that I don't often ask, but this is such a different thing from most of the other founders I talk to.
Look, I think there's tons and tons of like daily operational challenges, right? Like, you just like uh every little thing we do have to like think about fresh. And an example I'd give is like we don't uh Bitcoin isn't our investment, right? That's the denomination of our balance sheet. We invest our balance sheet in things that yield Bitcoin. Now, if you run a normal insurance company, by normal I mean in dollars, you just like write liabilities, you just like sell life insurance. And then you like put it in treasuries and like you do whatever, like there's a ready place to put it. But we're in this constant world where we're actually like one of the biggest providers of private credit in Bitcoin. That is like duration, chunky loans to institutional counterparties. So one, we had to develop an entire investment program. We have to like hire a head of credit. We have to like think about that. So I don't want to call it a challenge in that like I don't want to overstate the difficulty, but in contrast to if we just started a normal dollar company, it has been more challenging.
That makes
Or,
perfect sense.
I mentioned the discount curve, right? Like Bermuda publishes a discount curve in dollars and euros. And so we've had to write like a 40-page report about like how do we think about doing our discounting and like what does the options pricing suggest through the Black-Scholes model, like produces a risk free, like all this stuff, right? So again, I don't want to like none of it's been a barrier. Like we have done exactly what we plan to do. We like said from as I said, the very first memo we ever wrote in the company, we were like, we're going to go to Bermuda. We're going to create a Bitcoin life insurance company. We're going to start with a product for high net worth individuals, and we're going to systematically go down market. We're going to build all the technology ourselves. Like we've actually like executed the plan exactly, but along the way, every little thing is like that's what it's about when you're an entrepreneur or building something entirely new. The good thing is we have a global monopoly on these products, and the bad thing is we're doing something that no one else has ever done.
Global monopoly is a pretty sexy
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
term if
Yeah.
if you're trying to raise funds.
Yeah.
Uh,
Again, a $40 million Series A.
for next
But
fundraising,
I'm always willing to take more. I just
for next fundraising, I recommend a hairless cat. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
it's like your hair helps in this space.
I just want to make clear that that was not a solicitation for the sale of unregistered securities, and that I also do not provide any financial or legal advice.
The required disclaimer, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is I would go for the Dr. Evil look. You're a little too smiley for the Dr. Evil,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but
I
uh,
find the joy in
with a
death.
hairless
Yeah,
cat, and well, you explained that this is a global monopoly. Uh, uh, $1 billion. I think you would.
Well, I mean, someone will eventually compete with us, and then we'll destroy
Of
them,
course.
obviously. But yeah,
Uh,
ruthlessly. But
what is the timeline? And of course, like for the listeners, we're recording in 2025. Things change, right? Uh, but what is the timeline to
do you mean
start
the historic timeline or the timeline to world domination?
the 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 planned timeline to the point where you can write truly middle class life insurance, not like $100,000
Yeah, yeah.
a year.
Yeah, look, if I'm going to be honest, I think what's happened this year is we have been inundated with what I'll call institutional demand. Um, it is 2025 is proving to be a year with so much institutional interest in Bitcoin.
So
So that's in the form of potential reinsurance, where partner carriers would bring Bitcoin index products to market, and we're their reinsurance partner. bank-owned life insurance, company-owned life insurance, guaranteed investment contracts. So I think actually the next year or two is going to be building that
Makes
fortress
sense.
balance sheet
So,
based on these like institutional
so,
B2B2C opportunities.
so that is the very polite way of saying the extreme instability we have been living through when it comes to the business environment uh, here in the States and thus the world in 2025 has resulted in a lot of institutions being freaked out and wanting to get things denominated in Bitcoin, which
Yeah,
some
I guess
extent,
what
but you
I'll
have
say
a
is
lot of
I'll put it a little differently, which is there's increased concern about political and jurisdictional risk,
uh,
over the last
it
year.
it yes, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a ton of absolute.
Ha- Having said that, I do think that'll mean that there is more actually near-term access to some of the products that we can bring to market. It's just it won't come from us. It'll come from who I don't know who's the second largest life insurer in Costa Rica. I'm not saying we're doing something with them because I
Yeah,
don't know who they are, but like someone like that, um, m- we're talking to folks like that about partnering. So that would actually mean that from our perspective, it's an institutional relationship. It's very like B2B, but then they would bring Bitcoin products to their customers. So I think in that sense, the idea of Bitcoin life insurance may actually be somewhat fast to being able to reach global middle class. But the role we'll play in that is as reinsurer and like technology provider, which was not originally what I thought was going to happen. But again, as you said, the ETF gets launched last year. This year, I think a lot of insurers are looking around and they're saying, well, Fidelity, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, these are not small institutions in finance that are interacting with Bitcoin, and like we should figure out a strategy as well.
makes perfect sense. So you're pivoting a little bit to become more
Oh,
wholesaler.
pivoting is we're adding on these business lines. I will say the other product that we'll do, I'm not sure it'll be this year, but early next will be just a classic deferred annuity denominated in Bitcoin. And that we can definitely go down to smaller sizes. Like the fundamental problem, the biggest challenge to operationally is like how do you do the medical underwriting on that middle class person in Argentina? So you have to be able to justify the like capital expense of the underwriting. But what's nice about like a deferred annuity is it's a little more complicated than I'm saying, but there isn't usually like that sort of underwriting
Yeah,
involved.
yeah, yeah. I'm not a life guy, but my limited understanding of life, annuities are kind of reverse life.
Yeah, that's right. Life insurance, I mean, in theory, right? Life insurance, like what happens to your family if you die before you're supposed to, and an annuity is actually the opposite, which is what happens to your family if you live longer than you're supposed to. From the perspective of an insurance company, you have mortality risk and you have longevity risk, and they're like inverses of each other, and you like want to match them and stuff. In practice, again, these end up being like savings products. Like, why do people buy whole life? It's partially about the protection, but it's partially about like the tax advantage way to get things to your kids. And then like, why do people buy deferred annuities? Well, maybe they're not buying deferred annuities to annuitize. They're buying deferred annuities because it's a retirement plan that you can make whatever size you want.
Yeah, yeah, and they're protecting their longevity risk
Correct.
to not outlive their assets. Um, perfect. That makes sense. It really is like very exciting stuff for those of us who live in this crazy world of insurance. I've done we because I've not been the only one, but we have done 730 some interviews. 711 or 712 have gone live. Uh, and it is rare that we find something truly new. Right.
Yeah.
The majority of what we call insurtechs are building technology to sell into the insurance world, and many of them are MGAs that bring either technology or underwriting knowledge to a specialty side of insurance. But it is rare that somebody's building something truly new. And you guys,
Yeah,
it's
I
very
will say
interesting.
I see I mean, you might know these folks, but I really the insure tech entrepreneurs that I'm closest with might not be in life. They're people who are building the full stack. And that's like super hard, super complicated, quite different. So like you think of a Sean Harper at Kin, which is a home, sort of
Chicago-based.
homeowners insurance in the United States, Chicago based, does house by house aerial photography to underwrite. So they use a lot of data. They're doing like interesting, innovative stuff. But they it's super complicated. They have like a reciprocal and all this stuff, but like fundamentally, like they are owning the full stack from user all the way down to holding the risk. Another company I feel close to is like entrepreneur is Sam Hodges, who runs Vouch, which is like more like D&O, professional liability. But again, they're a carrier. They like hold risk. They like doing the whole thing. So, it's hard to be innovative. And I think one of the reasons it's hard is because when you actually think about the resources you need to build one of these companies,
It's crazy.
it's the capital, it's the know-how. Then you like want to layer on being a technology company and do it better. But is technology a differentiator? These are like hard businesses
Hmm.
to marshal all the things you need
Yeah,
together.
and to be a full stack carrier, you have to, for every state you want to serve, you have to park millions of dollars
Yeah.
in like treasuries. So no VC is going to back that. So it's extremely hard to do. And then there's a limited set of people that have the skill set. I know because I make my living finding them. So there's a limited set of people that have the experience to build one of these things. So those people are expensive too. Uh, and
Yeah, I will say though, my trick on that is I like to say I don't have to convince every actual life actuary in the world to work for me. I just have to convince one really good one. So, like our head of insurance, 22 years at New York Life, from actuarial student all the way to leading the entire individual life insurance business, super experienced guy, gets in and does the work. And he actually quit New York Life. He had the crypto bug himself. And then we found him. And my point is this is just like I only need to find one of those guys, right? Like one genius guy who wants to work on Bitcoin life insurance.
yeah, that's exactly how I would have approached the search had we handled that search. It would have been who has the experience, who's also a crypto uh,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
fan, because that's who's going to be so excited to come
Not
here.
all of our people like that. Like we have a chief risk officer, and I think he's definitely he came from Catalina, which is like Apollo's other insurer from Athene, and he definitely was more in like what you were just talking about, which is like I want to like this is so new, it's so interesting, it's so different. Um, but in some ways we can teach people Bitcoin. I can't. It's going to be hard to teach a Bitcoiner,
It
how to do
it,
life actuarial work.
it would take a lot longer to get
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's
a
a lot of
Bitcoin fan
those tests. Yeah,
credentialed through the
yeah.
SOA than to locate the few SOA people who also happen to be Bitcoin people.
Well,
Right?
no, what's nice about it actually is they locate us. Now that we exist, right?
That
Like
makes sense.
there are people listening to this podcast, and if they're passionate about Bitcoin already, like they're gonna shoot me an email.
Absolutely. Zach, a real
Cool.
pleasure. I'm glad that we had good internet this time. For the listeners, this was the second attempt. We had bad
Yeah,
internet
yeah,
this
yeah.
time. Uh, Glad that we had good internet this time and a great conversation. Look forward to see you guys continue to grow and build what I would call the wholesale side of the business, and then later on the middle market side of the business. Because
Absolutely.
I'm glad that somebody's doing it. Uh, I'm glad
Well,
that
thank you
somebody
so much,
is,
Tony. It
is
was a
buying
great
us some stuff.
conversation. I appreciate it.
Awesome.